Hey folks, welcome back to Money and Politics. I'm going to start off as we always do with the statement that I am not a registered broker or financial advisor, and the discussion's here for educational purposes. Any investment you make is your decision, yours alone. Your gains are yours, your losses are yours. So you are the one that decides whether you're going to pull the trigger and invest, and to what extent. Now, that said, welcome back to watching. Thanks for joining me. I've been meaning to come to you one-on-one. I've had a couple of interviews with Doug Oberhelman, the former CEO of Caterpillar Tractor, and with Calvin Wright on the crypto. We hope to do more with both of those gentlemen. I have never invested, by the way, in crypto. I don't feel I know it enough, but I know some of you are interested in it. And so that's why Calvin is generously given his time, and we hope to do more to share what he knows about that. Again, I just wanted to be clear, because one of the things I wanted to talk to you today, aside from just that I've been meaning, and I apologize I haven't gotten back one-on-one. I enjoyed doing this when I did, and as you know, I was doing it through 2021 and then not so much in 2022 because I ran for Congress. But I've been meaning to get back to it. And on the side, I will say I've helped different people over time. And, you know, one of the things that strikes me is just the need that for all of us to be critical thinkers. And I wanted to bring that up. I'm guilty, obviously, myself, of being wrong. Sometimes I'm really right, and other times I'm really wrong. And so in wanting to help the average investor, and I often say a lot of this stuff in investing is not that hard intellectually, it's hard emotionally. One of the things we really have to watch and be guarded against are our emotions. We either get too depressed or we get too giddy. So that's number one. So we need to be critical thinkers in life and critical investors. I came upon something along these lines that is an example, and that is from December of 2021, there was this article that was published, and the author of the article here kind of threw in Charlie Munger. I don't know why. I think maybe just perhaps because they wanted to include him in a headline. And they're saying how Munger is saying how so much is crazy in the market back then. Well, it was. But then the author of the article goes, one way to avoid crypto and getting burned by an overvalued market is to look at companies with stocks that have dropped but seem poised for a rebound. And what do they mention? I mean, I read this and I thought, oh my God, what do they mention? Well, they mention Disney, okay, and MasterCard, and then, oh my God, they mention AT&T. So let's take a look at what happened to those companies on a 2-year chart, because that's about where they were introducing this. I'm going to take myself out. And here we go. Now, the red line, which I always think is the baseline, is the S&P 500. So this is what the S&P 500 has done over the last 3 years. And then we have the other 3 stocks that were part of that article. And what does it say? Well, if you look at the purple line is AT&T, and here with AT&T over the last 2 years, that would be down 22.6%. The Disney is down there. That's the gold line, not much better. And there you have it. That is down, we'll call it 17%. And then you got MasterCard in green, which has done okay. It's about right where the S&P 500 is, at about 9%. So again, that's over 2 years. Now, here again, this is where you want to be not just reading these articles and thinking, well, if they say so, you got to look for the catchphrases. If you believe the turnaround is going to happen, then, hey, these stocks could be good. I'm in journalism, and in journalism, we often say you got to feed the beast. If you got a local news story, I work in television, you got the 5 o'clock news. Some days there's just nothing going on, but you got to feed the beast. So you put something out there. If you got an article to publish, you got to go to print. It's a monthly, or it's a weekly, or it's, a daily on the website. I don't mean to point fingers at any one person. As I said, I've certainly been wrong, and I've been wrong about things. But the point is, we have to be critical thinkers, because people are going to write articles. They got to knock it out. Sometimes they got a really good idea, and other times they don't. And so it helps to always be, as I say here, be a critical thinker in life and be a critical investor. So that said, one of the other things I wanted to do here today, aside from coming to you, is revisit some of the things that we did talk about. And I also want to make sure that I don't go exceedingly long. Every time I say I'm going to go short, I end up talking a half an hour. And that's not my intention. But let's take a look at some of the other things that we did talk about over the last 2 years when I first talked to you about it. And one of the stocks I talked to you about was FNGU. And there you see FNGU is up an amazing 321, let's call it 322%. That's the blue line. The gold line is AI. Now, I did not talk to you about that before. AI is the symbol. And of course, that's an artificial intelligence play. Talk about being critical. I would be cautious with all of these because of their growth being up so high here, with AI up 227.5%. Then in the light blue, we have Palantir, which was up today. I actually bought some today for the first time because they came out with earnings that were above expectations, and interestingly, the market immediately went down because the expectations weren't, they weren't quite as strong as some people thought they were going to be, so the market went down. To me, that's a buying opportunity. When a stock goes down on good news, I think sometimes the market is just screwy and it went down, and that's part of being a critical thinker too. I'm thinking against the market, and you're going to have to think against the market. If you're going to make money, a lot of times you're going to have to go against what the market thinks. Not always. Sometimes you can ride the trend. And when we go with AI, that is part of riding the trend. I'm also always a little uncomfortable to be jumping on the gravy train that everyone thinks is going to be. But I do think that artificial intelligence is for real. It doesn't necessarily mean that every AI stock is going to go up. But this is one that I would say, if you're going to buy it, be cautious in buying it. In other words, you can take a position, but don't go whole hog. And frankly, I want to make that point here about why we want to diversify. And when we say we want to diversify, it is because a lot of times people think, well, it's just because you want to be in different positions, and that's true. You want to have, and I did talk about this, back in 21 about putting together a portfolio where you don't want to have too much in any one position. Where you can have, say, more than 10% in a position is when you're buying the indexes, when you're buying the S&P 500 or when you're buying the NASDAQ, because obviously the one The S&P 500 is one purchase, but it's giving you 500 different companies. And when you're buying the NASDAQ, which is the QQQ, that's giving you 100 different companies. I like to buy the TQQ, the leverage version, and the UPRO, the UPRO. And we have the TQQ here is in black, and you see this is, again, a chart, as you see at the top, for so far this year. So this year, the TQQ is up 137%. That's technically 136.94, but I'm going to round it up. So we left off at Palantir is up 163%. So it's interesting, the TQQ, a leveraged index of the 100 different tech companies on the NASDAQ 100, and here's still Palantir and AI beat, as well as FNGU, beat the TQQ in black. So those are impressive gains. And then we have down at the bottom, we have the red line, which again is the S&P 500. That's the benchmark. I left out here the green, which is the UPRO. So the UPRO is as typical. That's a UPRO is 3 times the S&P 500, and that is up 47.8% so far this year. And what is down this year is DIG. That's the purple line. So it's down slightly. It's really flat, I would say. DIG, which I also talked to you about back in 2021, that's a 2x the oil markets. That has been very good for me, although this year it's been flat, but not too much. I mean, it's down 5%. Now, what I want to bring to your attention is when we talk about diversity, yes, it's so we have different positions. And because sometimes one is going to take off and one's going to go down, so you don't want to have all your eggs in one basket. But the other thing is, and this applies when we talk about oil, when we talk about AI, when we talk about different, there is a degree of what I would call seasonality to stocks. So let's take these same stocks. I'm going to take myself out of here for a moment. Let's take these same stocks and say, what has happened over the last year? And there you go. So when we go over the last year, that's a one-year chart, we see that we're still up on AI, the yellow line, that's up 67%, FNGU up 73%, Palantir up 47%, and then you come down to where DIG in the last year was up 28.8%. So if you go to a 2-year chart now, you'll really see, there you go. Look at the difference. Over a 2-year period, that purple line is DIG. And you see that over the last 2 years, if you had bought it when I was discussing it back in 2021, your position in DIG, even though it was flat so far this year, your position in DIG would be up, had you bought it in 2021 when we talked about it in the summer, 164% in 24 months. The red line is the S&P 500. Everything else, which you saw has been so good this year and so good on a 1-year chart, is down below the S&P 500. So this really drives home the point that you're investing in the seasonality. Again, I'm going to go back to show you, look how everything is below the S&P 500 on a 2-year chart. Now let's go to a year-to-date chart. How have we done so far in 2023? And there you go. And we go back to the year-to-date chart, and we have FNGU up 343% since January, AI up 227%, Palantir up 163%, and the TQQ up 136.8%. So, folks, this is the thing. I promised myself I'm gonna make this short. I seem to be impossible to do that, but That is why you want to have diversification, and that is why you want to understand not only that you want to have your stocks like in different boxes, but there is a seasonality to things. And when I buy, I typically, there's every rule can be broken, but when I buy, I typically want to have a position open for 3 to 5 years because as we saw there with Dig, sometimes, you get a down year, you get other years that are up. I started buying Dig in right after the election of 2020 because I knew we would be, it was way down because of the whole global economy had been shut down. And that's where, when we talk about money and politics, I could have called it money and news. You want to know what's going on in the world. You can get ahead of the game if you think, again, critically. This is where think critically. Be a critical thinker and a critical investor. A critical investor is where, when you read these articles that say go into AT&T, no, I mean, you want to be critical. You want to think about this. Don't just jump in because you heard one story. Do some homework. Maybe that's an idea. Maybe you think, oh, maybe I ought to take a look at AT&T. Maybe I should look at, MasterCard. Maybe I should take a look at Disney. But you got to do more homework. Don't be just jumping into this stuff because you heard one person and thinking that they know what they're talking about. They're in journalism. They're feeding the beast. It's like on the train years ago when you had to keep shoveling coal into the engine to keep the fire burning to make the engine go. That's often what journalism is like. You're feeding the beast. You're shoveling stuff out the door, and sometimes you're shoveling, what. So you want to be a critical thinker in all things. You got to be able to do some of your own homework. And the other thing is, don't think that when you buy something that it's just going to pop right then. I think this as I close. This has been one of the weirdest economies in my lifetime to read, and that's because of primarily because we've come out of COVID, which we never had before. During that time period, the federal government of the United States, the biggest economy in the world, has dumped so much money, so much spending into the economy. Some of that has been circulated. A lot of that money, like the infrastructure bill, has still not been spent. And so some people who thought we were going to have a recession this year, instead, as you know, the market's been great. We haven't had a recession. We keep every day kind of blowing back and forth when you talk to one guy versus another. Are we going to have a recession? Are we not? Will there be a recession in January, or is the market going to be strong? It's a very hard market to read because of these things where we've dumped trillions of dollars, spending bills that were historically unheard of before. And the government has spent so much of that money that has yet to really filter through the economy. So that's one of the hard things. We obviously had the war with Ukraine, and that's upset some of the just different commodities markets and other things. So again, what does that all mean? That means, as no time before, you have to be critical thinker. You have to pay attention to the news, pay attention, do some additional homework. If I say thing, if someone else says something about going out and just buying something, it may be a good idea. It may be an idea for you to do some homework, but don't just bet the farm on something, and do maintain diversity. Diversity, as we say, because you want to be in different positions. Diversity also because there is a seasonality to investing. With that, 20 minutes, twice as long as I was going to go. But hope you've had a great summer, folks, and I will endeavor to be coming to you on a more regular basis now that I've cleared up some of the other projects that I was getting launched. And with that, I'll say goodbye. Take care.